the next
Here we go.
is going to be our champion then.
Exactly. Oliver's got Kyogre and Landorus, Eric, Charizard and Groudon. We know that the Sun will be dominant at the end of this turn. But again, difficult situation here for Eric. You've got the Charizard in play, but you've got that Landorus opposing you. And if you're Oliver, is that Gastrodon going to make an appearance for the 3rd time? Yeah,
that's the thing. Is Eric going to make the same kind of play again? Because if he does, then Oliver has the opportunity to maybe think, okay, well, if we're going to see a double switch again, I could maybe go for the max here anyway, go into the Charizard with an Airstream, expecting maybe the Gastrodon to come in, but not seeing it this time. The mind games are really difficult in this situation, and with everything on the line, it's incredibly difficult to kind of commit to these big risky plays when you don't necessarily need to in these early stages of the game.
Exactly, every decision counts, and Incineroar jumps onto the field, crucially throwing down the Intimidate against that opposing Groudon, so it's wise from Eric to be able to switch it out, bring in the Zacian, that now gets onto the battlefield unintimidated. The Intrepid Sword boost will boost up to +1 attack as well. Nice for Oliver as well to have the Fake Out utility going into that next turn, possibly to pressure down onto that opposing Zacian, but looks like Eric is also making a switch in this Game 3 to go from defensive to offensive play. The Gigantamax Charizard is going to come straight out into the action here for Eric, and there's no Gastrodon in sight, so we have to keep an eye on that Kyogre as well.
Yeah, the big thing though is that this Sun is on the field. It's going to give that Charizard a little more protection, but big question is Oliver going to go for the Dynamax with the Kyogre as well, calling no Gastrodon on the field for Eric. Kyogre coming out, matching that Gigantamax Charizard.
Absolutely love this play here. We finally see the Kyogre in the environment it wants to be in, going for that Dynamax, and it's going to be looking to try and bring the rain onto the field and get a KO against that Charizard before it possibly can get shut down by a Gastrodon that could be hiding in the back. Charizard goes for the G-Max Wildfire, however, catches the Incineroar that switches in, still deals a huge chunk of damage, thanks to obviously having the solar power ability, the sun in the sky for that Charizard. But Kyogre goes for the Max Lightning, connects down onto the opposing Charizard. Huge damage, but not enough to pick up the KO.
Huge hit. And you've got to think now with the solar power going to kick in, the ability, it takes away health at the end of the turn with the Sun active. Is that going to be enough to knock out this Charizard? And it is. The Charizard is gone. Oliver getting that huge knockout from the Kyogre here. So powerful with that life orb that it's carrying.
I love this Kyogre going for the Dynamax here. Even if there was a Gastrodon, the Max Lightning isn't going to be, brought in by that. It's not going for the Max Geyser. It just removes such a big threat. And Eric loses his Gigantamax Pokemon before it's able to go for the second 2 Max moves. Phenomenal play there by Oliver. If you're Eric, though, what Pokemon are you going to bring in now to go side by side with Zacian?
Yeah, that's a big question, I think. The nice thing that Eric has got is a little bit of a kind of consolation, is that he did get that G-Max Wildfire off. He's got that residual damage. It's going to help him out, chip these Pokemon down on Oliver's side of the field, and just give him that little bit of a helping hand that he needs after losing that Charizard. Gastrodon making its way onto the field, going to limit what that Kyogre is able to do and kind of just start to disrupt. We've seen the Yawns. It's got a free target on either the Incineroar or the Kyogre slot here. The Zacian has to be a bit careful. Obviously the Sun up, the Incineroar on the opposite side of the field has taken a lot of damage, but it still does threaten big damage with the Flare Blitz if it's left unchecked.
Particularly with the Sun Up as well, like you said, Incineroar can apply pressure to that Zacian, but Zacian as well can go for something like the Sacred Sword and just remove that Incineroar threat from play. But that then leaves, again, that Kyogre really unchecked to go for something. You could go for like the Max Lightning, just deal some more damage, or even the Max Hellstorm into that opposing Gastrodon. We saw how much the Ice Beam had done previously. Zacian, fastest thing on the field, going for the Behemoth Blade, going to find its mark down on the opposing Incineroar. And I like this play because if Incineroar had switched out, you don't want to have to go for something like that Sacred Sword into a Pokemon and deal minimal damage. The Behemoth Blade covers all of those switch options. Kyogre does indeed go for the Max Hailstorm. It's going to find its way down on this little Gastrodon sitting on the field and does over 50% damage to it. So you can just see with the Life Orb how pivotal it is helping out this Groudon by dealing big damage.
Yeah, that's huge. And the big thing here is that Max Lightning not only boosting the damage from the Thunder, it's giving the Kyogre the immunity from the Yawn now. With that electric terrain on the field, the Kyogre grounded, affected by the electric terrain, not going to be able to be put to sleep. So on multiple levels, the Max Lightning, always the correct play. Great play from Oliver. Big risk, obviously, but taking the chance when it appeared, and not having to worry about the Yawn is such a nice added bonus to that whole entire play.
Oh, that's such a nice observation there, Lee. Working with the synergy between that Kyogre with the Max Lightning, and throughout this entire set, we've seen this rivalry between the Kyogre and the Gastrodon, and I really think that Kyogre in this game through is just absolutely not holding back, just making sure to shut down the Gastrodon, and can again now apply threat with a knockout by going for something like the Max Hailstorm. And even if the Gastrodon wanted to switch out, bring in something like the Groudon from the back, I mean, it's the only Pokemon in the back, it has to be, Groudon doesn't want to take a Max Hailstorm either.
No, not at all. And the Landorus coming in, getting that Intimidate, all important Intimidate onto the Zacian, really slowing it down. And here is the Rillaboom, the one thing that the Gastrodon does not want to see. Basically, all Oliver really needs to do is deal with this Zacian. The bad thing about bringing the Rillaboom in is it does get rid of that electric terrain loot unless we do see a Max Lightning into the Zacian here.
That is very true, and like you said, Zacian's going to be the target for Oliver, so Eric wisely protecting here just to see what Oliver is going to be doing. Gastrodon also protecting its little self, giving Eric a turn to really start thinking through the next couple of turns of this match. Kyogre does go for that Max Hailstorm, really trying to remove Gastrodon from the battlefield. As you can see, does minimal damage through that protect. So Gastrodon is going to be hanging on a little bit longer here in this Game 3 as the Hail Chip and residual damage will come around the battlefield.
Yeah, it's all going to take its little turn to chip down each Pokemon on the field. Gastrodon in an awkward position here, though, because the way you look at it, you know, like I say, the electric terrain taken away, so you are a bit more susceptible to those yawns, but the Gastrodon now in a really, really tough spot because it's just protected, and we know that the Groudon's in the back, and neither Pokemon want to come in and take a Grassy Glide, so what do you make the decision to do? Do you let the Gastrodon go down, or do you switch in the Groudon to take the Grassy Glide and hope to do enough damage with the Zacian onto the Rillaboom? The problem is if you do that, Oliver's able to just switch the Kyogre out right now, get that Landorus back onto the field, get another Intimidate onto the Zacian, lower the power of the Behemoth Blade, the Sacred Sword that we've seen, protect that Rillaboom a little bit more and give it the room that it needs to just start throwing these Grassy Glides or Wood Hammers or whatever it's got, Grass-type attack into that Gastrodon slot to remove or try and remove whatever's coming in on that space.
I completely agree. Oliver has to think very carefully about these next couple of turns. He does have the Landorus in the back that could be a Pokemon that will be key to picking up KOs against that Zacian if you're able to eliminate the partner Pokemon. Rillaboom is going to go for that Grassy Glide, targets down into that Gastrodon, which will of course pick up the KO against it. So choosing on Eric's side to just let the Gastrodon go down. Groudon will now come onto the battlefield and go for some offensive pressure, set that Sun up as well. Zacian is going to go for the Behemoth Blade though, targeting down into the Rillaboom, does a significant chunk of damage, but not able to pick up a KO. So when Groudon comes onto the battlefield, it's going to be in a really precarious situation. Kyogre I don't think is going to be going for any Water Spouts now that Gastrodon is down because the HP has dwindled, but something like the Ice Beam Grassy Glide combination that you mentioned, Lee, is just going to remove that Groudon.
Yeah, that's it, and it's getting very close here. Is the residual damage here? And Rillaboom hanging on, barely there, as the Grassy Terrain going to heal it a little bit back up there, and you can see how effective this residual damage is, and so important that Eric actually got that off. It's really cut down the HP of that Kyogre, meaning it's not going to be as effective, but like you say, the Kyogre can potentially, if it wants to, switch out here, get that Landorus onto the field. The problem is doing that if Eric kind of targets into the Kyogre and the Landorus takes too much damage coming onto the field, trying to drop an Intimidate here, maybe you're better off trying to just get maybe as much damage as you can with the Rillaboom and to say the Groudon. We know the Assault Vest on there can't protect. Get some damage onto it, protect your Kyogre for a turn, and then get your Landorus in, drop another Intimidate onto that Zacian, drop an Intimidate onto the Groudon, and then try and utilize your Landorus. The problem is with the Earthquake that you probably want to go for with the Landorus is that the Grassy Terrain is going to lower the damage output on that and make it difficult to get the damage you need, so you're going to try and maybe have to rely on the Kyogre. Switching the Kyogre out might be the better play. It's a very tough one to call though. Eric in a decent position though with the full health Groudon and the Zacian, able to do a lot of damage, but with that Intimidate in the back, it is going to make it difficult to get the damage you need on the field.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Switching out that Kyogre to have the weather control in the end stage of this Game 3 is going to be critical for Oliver. Getting the Intimidate is very nice against both the physical attackers, and you know, if you're Eric, you knew they were going to be intimidated at some point. Rillaboom going for the Grassy Glide though in the terrain into the Groudon, not enough to pick up a KO, does about 2/3 of damage as Zacian goes for the Play Rough, does connect onto the Landorus that is switched in, but is able to take that reasonably well. Groudon going to follow up with the Fire Punch though into the Rillaboom and pick up the KO against it. So this end board state is going to be Oliver bringing that Kyogre back in, and we know how fast it can be. So if you're in a position of being Oliver and you want to maybe protect up your Kyogre and get the Landorus to deal with the Zacian in some way, Groudon's going to really, really suffer in the face of that Kyogre. Yeah,
we know, like you say, the speed tiers of both these Pokemon. The Kyogre is trained to be faster than the Groudon. Oliver has essentially won the weather war. The question is, can the Zacian knock out the Kyogre from this range? If the Kyogre can survive and get an Origin Pulse off, then this game looks like it's probably going to be Oliver's. It's not as clean cut as that, but that is essentially what you need to do. Does Oliver protect his Pokemon here? Maybe just the extra turn, just to get a little bit of extra recovery from the grassy terrain, because that little bit of extra HP might be enough. You know, that could be an option here. But you've got to have your Kyogre protect to survive the attack from the Zacian, essentially.
Well, Landorus going for the protect, as is the Kyogre on Oliver's side. Eric just gonna have to go into protect at this point. Zacian goes for the play rough into the protect of the Kyogre. That was the target of choice, as Groudon goes for the Rock Tomb into what would have been obviously the Landorus if it hadn't protected. I mean, we've seen from the abilities alone, the order of the speeds here with these Pokemon. It's going, you've got Zacian the fastest on the field, then the Landorus, then the Kyogre, and then the Groudon.
Yeah, it's the Zacian is having to probably rely on that play rough as well, and it's not the most accurate of attacks. So that is something, if Eric is clicking into the Kyogre with that, he's got to pray that it does hit, because if it misses, then it really makes the game very difficult for him. If it hits, there's a good chance it can take it out. But will that grassy terrain HP recovery that we've just seen on the Kyogre be enough to allow that Kyogre, when the Zacian's on -1, to survive and get a big water type attack off in the rain on both of these Pokemon on Eric's side of the field? Both players just taking their time here.
Oh, play rough misses the Kyogre! Landorus able to go for the rock slide here. It's connecting down onto both the opposing Pokemon. Will it get the flinch on the opposing Groudon? Gets a critical hit, but it doesn't really matter. Oh, the Kyogre is able to go for the Ice Beam, targeting down into the opposing Groudon, and will be able to get the KO. That play rough miss was critical.
That is huge. That is a huge miss. Massive for Oliver, really unfortunate for Eric here. If that connects, we still don't know, would it have been enough to knock out? It would have been very close, depending on how the Kyogre has been trained, but really unfortunate. Grassy terrain ending now, and the Landorus in a position where the Kyogre can protect, can go for an Earthquake, do some big damage to the Zacian. Everything down to the Zacian for Eric. Can it turn this match around against the Kyogre? It, as we've mentioned, is the fastest thing on the field. So if you can pick off the Kyogre now, it is risky because of the Protect potentially coming out, the Earthquake coming out from the Landorus. Which one do you target? It's a big call from Eric. Very experienced player. I'm sure he is. It's just a hard one to call at this point.
I mean, my heart is racing. Goodness knows what the hearts of our players are like at the moment. The Zacian is going for the Protect here. Just going to see what Oliver is going to do. Landorus is going to go for a Protect as well, leaving the Kyogre free to relatively do what it wants. Going for the Thunder, you know, 100% accurate in the rain. Really nice play here, and with the Life Orb can certainly deal a significant chunk to that Zacian. And I think the key thing here is just all eyes on the Landorus. The grassy terrain has now disappeared from the battlefield. These Earthquakes are going to be dealing significant chunk, particularly single target damage into that Zacian.
Yeah, now Oliver's made the play where he can protect the Kyogre, knowing that the Zacian, well, it can go for a double protect. It's risky though, but he's free to go for an Earthquake here and get some huge damage. Like you said, single target Earthquake onto the Zacian. Will that just be enough? No Protect coming out from Oliver's side of the field. Behemoth Blade from the Zacian. It's going to be into that Landorus slot on Oliver's side of the field. Not enough. Lewis hangs on.
Not able to pick up the KO against the Landorus. They can go for a Rock Slide in retaliation, only dealing a minimal amount of damage here. But the Kyogre is going to follow up with the Thunder, using the rain to find his mark on the Zacian. Does a significant chunk of damage, but not enough to get the KO. So Zacian going to be able to hang on for one more turn.
It is worth noting that the Kyogre on Oliver's side of the field does not have Origin Pulse. It has got Water Spout as its only water type attack. So having such low health, it is going to be a lower attack move. So that's why we're seeing Oliver relying on the Thunder in this situation. It's still difficult though. Which Pokemon do you target? Do you know, the Zacian now, is the Thunder going to be enough to pick up the knockout? That is the question. Will it be enough from the damage that we've just seen? The rain's still on the field for one more turn, so you've got one more turn to take advantage of this 100% accurate Thunder if you do go for it.
Well, Oliver just going for a double protect here. I was going to say, well, where is the Zacian targeting? It's gone back to the play rough, was going down into that opposing Kyogre slot. And I mean, this is where things look so difficult for this Zacian. I mean, you are the fastest thing on the field. You could pick up the KO against the Kyogre, but then the Landorus can go for the Earthquake. You could pick up the KO against the Landorus, but then Kyogre can go for that Thunder. The issue is, though, the rain has disappeared now, Lee. That Thunder is not going to be 100% accurate, and we have seen a pretty critical miss already in this Game 3.
Yeah, that is the big thing, and Eric, it's made it a little bit easier for Eric now, where he can say, well, let me attack the Landorus here, get rid of that Earthquake threat, and let's hope that the Thunder without the rain does miss, and there's a good chance I might even survive it anyway, knowing from the previous damage. So it's probably the best way to do it, but this is also a play as well, giving the Protect avoiding the earthquake, especially if the Kyogre does not protect. And Oliver is going to go for it and knock his own Kyogre out from the earthquake, from the Landorus. And this locks it up for Eric. He's made a perfect predict there with the protect. And he is going to be going on to become